You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. I'm welcoming you to take another lap of the Extra Mile for today, February 18th, 2021. Feels nice to be doing that intro again. Big T is in the chat. Thank you so much, brother, for stepping in for me last week. Had to do some work things, but fortunately, I am back here on the show, and we are going to talk about the Daytona 500. And we were having a great conversation before the start of the show, and we are going to get into how long it took us to complete that race. But before we start that, I have to welcome in my co-hosts, Michael Ward and Christopher Lehman. Fellas, welcome.
What's going on today, you lovely people?
Not a whole lot. It's up to you.
Well, we are sitting
ready to talk about some great racing that happened this weekend.
Once it finally
happened,
of course.
You know, the Jet Dryer 250.
Yeah.
Jet Dryer 250. I at least gave him an extra 100 miles. Look at Jet Dryer 350, but we're going to get to that in the show. This is going to be a Daytona-centric show, of course, as it usually is at the start of the season. If you're a first-time listener, got a lot of NASCAR going on. We don't have Formula One yet. It's going to be a little bit longer. We do have some Formula One news, though, but not a lot going on in the Formula One world right now. Don't really have a lot going on in IndyCar either, as their season hasn't started yet. So it's going to be very NASCAR heavy for the first couple of weeks. And now, before that, though, before we get into Daytona and, of course, Formula One news, we do want to say that our hearts are with the people in Texas right now. Just a terrible situation going on where basically the entire state is out of power after a snowstorm. I won't bore you with the political intricacies of what's going on there, but I will give you a Cliff Notes version of this is what happens when your elected officials decide independence over helping their constituents. A lot of decisions have led into the unfortunate circumstances that those in Texas are suffering right now. And there's a lot of people in some pretty powerful positions in Texas that need to do some soul searching, because what these people are going through with the boil water advisories, not having power for 30 to 60 hours, that's on them. That's not on the people of Texas, and they're going to have to think about that. And we did have the death of a certain former talk host whose name we are not going to share. We have seen the discourse about him on Twitter. All I will say is this, is that people will remember you in death the way you treated them in life. And I think those are strong words that we need to live by going forward. So with that administrative work out of the way, let us get into the fun part, which is talking about race cars that go way too fast in circles. And today, we're going to start with Formula One, get that news out of the way. BWT, Austrian Water Treatment Company, is on the search for a new team to host their Pink Panther livery after they fell out with Aston Martin. And it came down to a question of paint scheme. Aston Martin likes running the British Racing Green. BWT obviously likes to run the pink. We thought we were going to see some cool watermelon livery out of it. Unfortunately, the two teams couldn't come together, and they have split apart. So BWT looking for a new team to work for. And it looks like, or the news earlier today, was that there were two teams that were involved in possible discussions. Haas and Williams F1. Both of those teams desperately need money for a multitude of reasons. As the day has gone on, the news has come out. Chris Medlin reported that Haas is no longer in the running, and it looks like Williams is going to don the Pink Panther livery for the 2021 season. Michael, we'll start with you. Everyone fell in love with the pink Force India / Racing Point / whatever you want to call them cars. Now we're going to get some pink Williams cars.
I love the
now.
pink. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Couldn't hear you for a second. I mean, I love the pink, and I think Williams is in need for some good sponsorship. So I think this is going to be a really good deal for them, especially after the last couple of seasons where they've, been struggling really badly with sponsors. I
Mhm.
think this is a good change of pace for them, and they can definitely use this to get themselves back on their feet. What about you guys?
Sorry, drop my headphone. Um, yeah, I think that it's an interesting shakeup to, the F1 sponsorship landscape. It'll be interesting to see who they sign with. Obviously, the two teams that have been most linked are also two teams that are looking for some money. So it'll be interesting to see which one, who offers BWT the better deal at the end of the day, and it's going to come down to who needs that money the most. And I think it'll give you a look at the state of finances in F1 after the coronavirus, or
And we
or
know,
as we go through it anyway.
the state of the finances has not been good for racing. You flash over to what's going on here in America, and I was doing research for an article for CNS Maryland that I'm working on as far as racing and COVID, and I was looking through the Paycheck Protection Program loans that were given out, and Chip Ganassi Racing here in the United States. Now, the article isn't about big racing teams. It's about things in Maryland. But Chip Ganassi Racing had to take out had to get a $3 million Paycheck Protection Program loan to keep all of their people employed. Now, that's just here in the United States. JTG Doherty was also on there. I think they were at $1.5 million. It doesn't go without, if you've listened to this show before, you know anything about racing, you know it takes a lot of money to do this, and having a stoppage for 8 weeks in the middle of the season hurt NASCAR teams a lot. Formula One lost half their year. That is commercial revenue they didn't get. That's sanctioning fees they didn't get. That's TV money. I may have said that already, but that's TV money they didn't get. That's gate money that the race organizers didn't get. There's a lot of people in this sport that are hurting. And, of course, Williams and Haas, two teams that didn't exactly have the best monetary situation, they needed a lot of help. Now, Haas did get that help with their second driver. However, that second driver may hurt them on getting further sponsorship opportunities going forward. But Williams, two young drivers, relatively more stable situation, less off the track drama, could really be a great cash infusion to bring one of the more storied F1 privateer teams back to prominence. And Michael, that would be great to see McLaren and Williams going at it for points and hopefully wins again like they did in the old days.
Yeah, it'll be definitely good for the both of them and for the sport. It's kind of getting a little boring just seeing the usual suspects up at the front. So I think it'll be a really nice change of pace to see Williams and McLaren duking at it again. And, it's such, I became such a Williams fan during 2014 and 2015 because I really thought they were going to be the team that dethrones Mercedes because their car was so quick. It was really quick, but just to see them go on a decline that they did. So I'm glad they're now getting faster and getting stronger soon because, the new sponsorship, the new ownership. I think it's just going to be great just for them. And I think everybody should be watching Williams, just like how everyone could potentially be watching Williams this coming season. Not Williams, McLaren this coming season.
Yep. Joe in the chat says, I go with Williams. I think the new management will be more promising. They definitely have a better choice in drivers than the Haas management. We know that for a fact. Which, speaking of which, Haas's former driver, Roman Grosjean, currently getting ready to go testing. He'll be in Barber next week with Dale Coyne Racing. He just posted that on Twitter not too long ago. Going to be exciting to see what he does when the IndyCar season finally gets started. But we were talking And Christopher brought up a good point. I do want to bring this up to you guys, or bring it to you, Michael. He asked the question of, has there ever been a dumber or ever been a more, I guess dumber is a good word for it, dumb reason to leave a team.
Childish?
Yeah, childish, we can go with that. A more childish reason to leave a team than the color of the car. I still go with the whole Bubba Wallace Blue Emu debacle that happened during the NASCAR iRacing Challenge or whatever it was called. I can't remember the name now. It's been so long in this pandemic. I think that's worse because that was a fictional race.
I'm going to agree with you. That was the worst, but I think one of the worst cases of that is when Porsche was making the 911, it was called the 901. Mm-hmm. And France was basically like, you can't have the number O in your title because of their car. I think it was the 908. And they were just like, you can't do that. So the reason Porsche is called the 911 is because, France was petty.
Mm-hmm.
It's another example of that.
There's a lot of petty stuff that goes down in motorsports. There could probably be a whole book about it, to be honest. Adam actually asked a question in the chat. Who attracts whom, management or drivers? And I guess that's in terms of sponsorship. It's a little
Go ahead, Dara.
It's complicated because it used to be a little bit of both. Teams and drivers would work towards sponsorship. Nowadays, it feels like it's 80-20 in terms of driver, which makes sense because the driver is going to be the ambassador of whatever product goes on the car. I don't know what you guys think, Michael, Chris.
So,
go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
So for me personally, I think it actually comes down to teams. Just specifically speaking NASCAR at this point. If you look at teams, I think you get a big idea of whether it's driver or management. So if you take look at Penske, so they really kind of share or pass around some of their sponsors, Moneyline. Moneyline's been on all three cars. So that's not necessarily saying that Moneyline is Joey Logano's sponsor or Brad's or Blaney's. That is a team sponsor. You can go look at Hendrick, Exalta. They're on it. They've been on a number of cars throughout the year. But then if you take Bass Pro Shops, for instance, they're on 3-4 cars any given year. So I think that at this point in time, I think it really comes down organizationally, more so versus drivers as to, who's pulling in what sponsors.
And
Michael, will let you have the last word.
I want to say it's a mixture of both because I feel like no driver who has sponsors isn't going to join a team without without being convinced by the management. And I hear one of the ways that Mercedes got Hamilton is that they showed him their plan for Formula One during this era, and they convinced him to join. And he has a lot of sponsors, so they convinced him to join, which convinced the sponsors to join. So I think the management or the team leads or whatever, I think they have a big cause in how teams can go up and down because it's a one way to attract a driver and their sponsor, but it really comes down to how to convince the drivers to join.
Yep. And you do make a good.
Is what I'm saying.
You do make a good point there, but bottom line, it is a management, whether it's management or drivers. Takes a lot of money to make these cars go fast, and unfortunately 2020 was a rough year on race teams financially, just like it may have been on a lot of our fans financially. But 2021 is the best time to make a comeback when it comes to your finances. And if you need help getting back in the race, why not give Legacy Financial a call? Andrew and Io are on a mission to help make sure your 2021 financial plans are firing on all cylinders. Book them today at 510-928-2104. That's 510-928-2104. Thank you to Legacy Financial for sponsoring IE Sports Radio, and we will be right back after this. We're going to talk about the Daytona 500, and it is time to seriously consider that certain time change everyone wants. We'll talk about that in a moment. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Here comes the pitch, and it comes in wide.
On the BS3 Sports Show.
Welcome to the BS3 Sports Podcast. We hope your experience with us is amazing. Sports talk, comedy, social issues, and more. BS3 is the best source.
Can you dig it?
And we are back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and we could not get it done without Mom is Always Right Media. Hey, if you're feeling stressed from all that online school, and I know a lot of us are, essays keeping you awake, you need some help making sure that you hit that deadline with your best foot forward, give Mom is Always Right Media a call. They have the skills you need to help you ace that report. And are you graduating and need help preparing for interviews? Mom is Always Right Media can help with interview prep that will get you the job of your dreams. Give them a call today at 626-653-3649. Thank you so much to Mom is Always Right Media for being a sponsor of IE Sports Radio. So we are back. It's time to talk Daytona 500, and we are going to get into the race in just a moment. But first, unfortunately, we got to talk about the weather, and more importantly, how the start times need to be affected by it. I think we've all seen by now the Daytona 500 ratings that came out, and they were brutal. I believe it was quoted as being the worst of the Daytona 500s of all time. And unfortunately, it happened not because the racing was poor. In fact, the first hour of the race, it started at 3:05, was actually trending higher than the 2019 event. It was lower than the 2020 race. Remember, that had a visit by then President Donald Trump. That is not the case this year, so we take that race out due to the outlier. We go back to 2019. It was trending higher with 8.48 million viewers. And then Christopher Bell wrecks half the field on lap 14, bringing out a caution. And then the red flag happens not too long after due to a lightning strike followed by torrential downpours that put us out of commission for 6 hours. In that time, 5 million people turned off the TV and went to go do something else or went to watch something else. Fox did not get those people back. It turned into a terrible rating for them. And now it seems like they may be more open to earlier start times going forward. Fellas, we have heard for years that we got to get the West Coast audience. We got to get the West Coast audience. Christopher, I'll start with you. Does it really matter how much West Coast audience you get if you don't show them a race?
Let me preface this, Daryl, by what I said in the pre-show, is that if you go on Twitter, the cesspool of society, you will read that people on the West Coast are saying, started earlier. Started earlier. We'll watch it. We're going to wake up. We wake up to watch F1. We wake up to watch European football. You know, we wake up 2 hours before to watch football start at our East Coast 1 o'clock time. You know, we wake up at whatever the heck California time that is to watch football. So, you know, why are we starting it so late to capture a California audience that is used to, you know, having to wake up early to catch sports from this side of the world and, you know, even across the pond? So it's just frustrating that as East Coast fans that we're up until midnight watching the end of this race, you know, because they're scared of a couple Californians, or, well, I shouldn't say Californians, but a couple West Coasters who don't tune in for the pre-race coverage, but they're going to tell me, hey, you know, I don't care if you fall asleep with 25 to go as long as the TV's still on, right? It's just frustrating, Daryl, and I think it's time for a change.
Well, some strong words there. Michael, how do you feel about the possible time switch?
I think it's due needed. I think there has to be some way to beat the rain because, honestly, you know, when we have to wait for a race to resume, a lot of people are going to, you know, go watch something else, go play video games, go out, and, you know, people forget. Like, at one point, I forgot that Daytona 500 was gonna resume. I thought this race was gonna start the next day on Monday. So, you know, if it wasn't for, you know, Daryl reminding me that the race is getting back together, I would have never watched it. So I think an earlier start time is going to be beneficial because, you know, rain is going to come and then there's going to be a rain delay. We're going to have to jet dry at 350 and nobody wants to watch that. So.
Adam says, with the radar tech we all carry in our pockets every day, they should not be getting caught by surprise 6-hour-long rain delays. I agree, and it's frustrating because they have a mechanism, we have heard, that they can change the race start time by more than an hour if they give at least 24 hours notice. We knew as far back as the duels on Thursday that there was a chance the weather could be bad, and they had more than enough time to move everything back to have a start at, even if you don't give 12 o'clock, start the race at 1 o'clock, you at least get to the official distance, and we're going to talk about that, before the rains come in, and you don't have to sit there for 6 hours trying to get a race through. And Joe says, as a diehard motorsports enthusiast, waking up for a 9 a.m. race is no problem. He also went on to say that growing up in Alaska, you wake up early for NFL, NASCAR, and most programs move the start times to an earlier time. And I kind of agree. The West Coasters are going to get up, And if you don't want to start at noon, because that would be 8 a.m., start at 1 o'clock. Every football game start on the East Coast starts at 1 o'clock. They can wake up for football. They can wake up for this. And
so I just want to say one last thing, Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of piggybacking. If I was on the West Coast, I would want the race to start earlier. I would want to wake up at 8 o'clock, watch the race, and be done by 11, 12 o'clock. Like, that'd be perfect. Like,
yep.
And then you got the whole rest of the day.
Yeah, you get done with the race. Hey, it's noon. Let's go to the beach. Or, hey, let's go to the restaurant. Like, you don't have the rest of your day tied down by trying to wait on whether or not this race is going to come back. I mean, T in the chat, he went, they went wine tasting, waiting for the rain delay. The race could have been over, and then he's off to the wine tasting, and they're talking about the race at the wine tasting. So there's ways that the earlier start times can actually work for the West Coast to get more interest, because then they get to spend the rest of their day going out. If the race is good, they can bring it up with people. But
and then that gets
they
more
can't
people to talk about the race or to check
exactly.
out NASCAR.
But they can't do that if the race, okay, it starts at 1 o'clock and it doesn't get started till like 7 their time, or like what time it get started here? About 9 o'clock, so it's 8, 7, about 6 o'clock their time. By the time the race is over, it's evening there, so it's time for them to go to sleep. Over on the East Coast, that race ended at an unbearably late hour of the night, when you have to remember that everyone has to wake up to go to their living rooms for work the next day. So you got a lot of people on the East Coast that probably gave up on the race and went to bed thinking that was going to get restarted tomorrow. They restarted it on restarted on Sunday, and the ratings suffered. So that is something that they're going to have to look at. And to be honest, I'd rather have an earlier start time and get most of the race in than deal with what we did on Sunday, because it doesn't help the industry, doesn't help the sponsors, definitely doesn't help TV. So let's get into the actual race. And the running of that race, as I said on Tuesday, on 2Y Tuesday, guys, it really changed when Christopher Bell knocked out half the field, because everyone just, for the most part, rode single file.
Because I thought it was the 18 that pushed him really hard, and then he couldn't do anything.
It was Christopher Bell's the one who made contact with Alex Bowman, but there's a lot that went into that.
Yeah, it was one of them racing deals, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And as a big time Bowman fan, I was very bummed out and wanted to crawl under a rock.
How do you think I felt at the end?
I think we all did. It was a bad day for the new teams in NASCAR, 2311 and Trackhouse. Daniel Suarez was running up front, or running in the top 10, when that incident happened, and they ended up getting taken out, which was a great day for Trackhouse at the beginning. Pitbull was there, who was a part owner of that team, giving the command to start engines. There was a whole bunch of pomp and circumstance around them. Unfortunately, came all for naught. And then 2311, the team that everyone has been excited to see get off the ground. Bubba Wallace was supposed to start fourth, went to the back due to failing pre-race inspection twice, ran top 10 most of the day, had a chance late to win, and then a loose wheel forces him back into pit lane after what was a terrible pit sequence by Toyota. The three cars, instead of coming down with another manufacturer, came down by themselves, had no time to get caught back up. And then they get involved in the giant wreck at the end. And Christopher, for 2311, that was a race where the result is not proof of how they ran.
Yes, I would agree with that. And while the fans, we sometimes take things at face value. So, some people are going to look and see where Bubba finished and be like, oh, well, surprise, surprise. But what they don't see is how competitive he was all race, how they definitely exceeded my expectations personally. But Bubba's always been pretty good on super speedways, so maybe it's not so surprising. But, most importantly is people in the industry and sponsors saw that, and they can definitely read through what the stat sheet says. And so I think at the end of the day, it was a great showing for those two new teams. It's a bummer, what happened to both of them, but at the end of the day, they're pointed in the right direction. They had great showings, and I think that that's only going to help out the sport, seeing those two new teams owned by celebrities, or at least co-owned by celebrities. I think that's a great optic.
Michael?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, we're talking about 2311 Racing. We're just saying that, the finish for them is not representative of their day.
It's definitely not. Bubba Wallace was right up there the entire race. He was doing a great job for 2311. Even that result definitely doesn't reflect, but it's the reality of plate racing. You might possibly be swept up in a giant wreck, and I think Bubba shouldn't push himself too hard over that performance. He did a really great job. He finished top 10 in both stages. So I think he's done a really good job. And if that's a reflection of how the rest of the season is going to be, I'm looking forward to this team even more now. But, you're going to have some people take everything on face value and just say he didn't do a great job. So I hope he shows up again at the road course, and I think he's going to shut all those people up who say it's just a plate race. So
I think he's going to have...
Yeah, that's my thought.
I think he's going to have a great chance at the road course in Daytona. He had a top 10 run going before, unfortunately, he got taken out by Joey Logano on the last lap. Had a chance to finish top 10 in that race. I think Bubba's going to do well. He starts in the top 10 due to the new points, the new formula where you need an abacus to do it. Basically, Bob Pockris sets the starting order. We'll go with that. But that's obviously a joke. But he will get to start at the top 10. He had a run in the top 10 going. We know that team's getting JGR backing, so it's a lot faster than the car he was in. Bubba Wallace is going to be just fine this season. It's going to take them time to go through the Rolodex of the season. Denny Hamlin just wants to see, of course, the team improve from now to the end of the season. We'll see how it goes. But we don't want to leave the winner out. Michael McDowell pulls off a shock win when the dust settles. He gets his first career win in 357 starts. And, Michael, I think he's got to be happy that his name no longer is only attached to being a crash test dummy for the COT in 2008.
Yeah, I felt that very much because that was all people were talking about him. Was that crash in 2008? So now he's no longer the guy that survived the horrible crash. He's now, Michael McDowell, Daytona 500 champion. So I think it's a great way to definitely finally get that stigma off of him that he's, somebody who survived the crash. What about you, Chris? What do you think about that as well?
And Christopher, you'll have the last word.
Yeah, so it was pretty neat to see, and I don't know, did you guys see that statistic about the Daytona 500 first-time winners?
I didn't. Go ahead.
So if you didn't, so in 2001, Michael Waltrip won his first career cup race, Daytona 500. In 2011, Trevor Bayne wins the Daytona 500 for his first career win. And then this year you have Michael McDowell, who wins the Daytona 500 for his first career win. So every 10th year, you have somebody crowned the 500 champion that also won their first career cup race.
Did not know that.
They're pretty. Yeah, so that's it's a pretty neat statistic. And so yeah, so I'm happy for Michael McDowell and for Front Row. That's a huge thing for them. And I hope at the end of the day that we see, maybe some infrastructure improvement for Front Row with that big purse money. It'd be good to see, another team, being competitive, not just on, super speedways, but, everything else.
Well, we will see what happens with them this week when we go to the road course, our second straight stop in Daytona. And folks, did you know that it goes down in the PM? You want to know the nitty-gritty about what goes down when the clock hits 5? Tune in to It Goes Down with the PM, presented by Mom Is Always Right Media. 2 female media executives share their tales of what goes on when the workday ends and the filters come off. Check out new episodes on Anchor or your favorite podcast site today. We'll be right back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio with more conversation on Daytona. We're going to talk more about the Daytona 500 and, of course, get you ready for the road course races coming up this week. We will be right back after this short break.
Do you love college football? And do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well, then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We're back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio. And if you did get confused there by the intro, or by that little segue there, the race is not going down in the PM. It's going down at 3 o'clock. But the podcast, it goes down in the PM, presented by Mom Is Always Right Media. You want to check that out. Thank them so much. They got another podcast that also sponsors us. That is Coffee After Dark, and Season 2 of our favorite love story is well underway on Coffee After Dark. Join Rob and Julene for a journey through love, pop culture, and oh so much more. Check out Coffee After Dark on Anchor FM and other places where podcasts can be heard. Well, welcome back, and we're going to start talking more a little bit about Daytona. I want to close the book on the Daytona 500 first. And want to talk to you guys about the state of super speedway racing. And we saw it again. A huge wreck marring the end of one of these can't really call them plate races anymore, but super speedway races, we'll go with that. It's just become a thing in the Gen 6 era with the closing rates and people continuing to throw just awful blocks, especially on the last lap where everyone just turns off their brain and runs on instinct. We've seen what this can cause. We saw what happened to Ryan Newman last year, and that we come back a year and everybody forgot the lesson that we learned at Daytona last year, which is you can't do the over-aggressive runs. You can't throw the extremely late blocks and think something good is going to happen. You know, it's been 20 years since anyone has died in one of NASCAR's top 3 series. And with this plate racing, and I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on it. We can start with Michael and then go to Chris. It just feels like, to me, we are playing chicken with having to reset that timer. Because every year we have a wreck that just stops us because of these awful blocks and the overambitious runs that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think it's more of, it's hard for me to say because it's you know that if you try to reinforce that it's the beginning of a race or it's the middle of the race, and of course, when it's like the last 14 laps, all bets are off. But we had a major wreck at lap 14. Lap 14, everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's way too early for a major wreck. And plus, a lot of great cars were taken out in that wreck. So, all I can say is just maybe, the spotters can just reinforce, that it's, what is happening around them, what lap they're on, because, there shouldn't be aggression at lap 14, maybe even in the middle, or maybe, definitely I can understand late in a race, but, a major wreck like that on lap 14 is very uncalled for. So I think the thing we need to concentrate on is just reinforcing the drivers of, not being aggressive or trying to be aggressive at the right time, or if you try to throw a late block, you have to understand that, you can't really do anything about it because the guy has the run already.
And we've seen it that the blocking, especially early in the race, sometimes you just got to let people go, because if you don't, it ruins folks' days. And Christopher, he's a big Alex Bowman fan. Bowman started up front in the Daytona 500 for the 4th consecutive year, and everything comes to naught, not because of something he did, but because of someone else's mess. And not only that, you take out 16 cars way too early, and Christopher, it changes the complexity of the race when you knock out so many cars because of a mistake over aggressive racing that didn't need to be done that early.
Yeah, it was, as I said earlier, it was heartbreaking seeing that wreck. When do you ever expect on lap 15 that second, third, and then a ton of other people behind second and third get wrecked? Because 4th place is being aggressive, and you could argue that 5th place is pushing 4th place way too aggressive. I would have thought that they would have tempered their expectations, especially so early in the race. And like you were saying, there's something to be said, a certain level of respect that drivers have where, if the other car is faster than them, they're going to let them go by. And on lap 15 of a 200-lap race, are you really that concerned about position? Because we all know how quickly everything changes. And it was just unnecessary to cause such a big wreck so early. They just got to temper their nerves. And then, just as a little shout out, about the Alex Bowman record, he started on the pole or the front row for the 4th consecutive year, which broke a long-standing record held by some of the greats of NASCAR. They could only manage 3, and Bowman gets 4. And just a quick stat out of Avery Haig, which is his Twitter is at Avery Haig, no spaces. He throws out a lot of great stats, and qualifying night, he pointed out that Greg Ives' record as a crew chief for qualifying the Daytona 500 is, it can, in order, third, second, first, second, first. That Greg Ives has that track figured out when it comes to qualifying, and Dale Jr. and Alex Bowman are both fantastic qualifiers. So it's just, especially for all those Jimmy fans that were hoping to see the 48 get turned, not turned around in the sense that it actually happened, but see the 48 back in victory lane. It's just heartbreaking for all those guys too, that were looking for a new start.
And Joe says here in the chat that NASCAR needs to implement a blocking policy. Unfortunately, we've seen what happens when NASCAR tries to implement a policy like that. Either it doesn't get implemented evenly and people start crying favoritism, or that fan favorite driver does get dinged and it causes just a whole lot of controversy. But they're going to have to step in and do something eventually, because it's not good for us as fans to have to continue to see these major accidents and just hold our breath till the window nets come down. So something has to change. Whether or not it will remains to be seen. But we're done with the super speedway racing for now. We'll be back to these type of tracks in Talladega. Now it is time to get started with the quote-unquote real season, and that starts at the Daytona Road Course with the O'Reilly Auto Parts 253, and I'm not sure why they just didn't make it 250 miles. I don't get the mile nomenclatures for the Daytona Road Course because the numbers are just odd. They're the oddest numbers we'll see all season. But Michael McDowell, who won the Daytona 500, is going for something that has only happened 3 times since Daytona has hosted the first or second race of the season, and this statistic actually comes from the Daytona International Speedway. He's trying to go back-to-back in wins for the 4th time. Matt Kenseth won the 2009 Daytona 500 and then won at Auto Club. Jeff Gordon did it in 1997, winning at Daytona and Rockingham. And David Pearson was the first way back in 1976, winning at Riverside and then Daytona 5 and the Daytona 500. That was the 500 where he and Richard Petty collected each other on the final lap. Now, this is going to be a much tougher race for McDowell to win and for Front Row Motorsports, but Michael, he is a good road course racer, so there is a chance we could see McDowell up there competing for the victory, and he is starting up front.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance that he can go there and make some noise happen. So I expect him to have a lot of momentum into that race. So I think he'll do pretty well. I don't know if he'll beat Chase Elliott, but I think he'll do pretty well. What about you guys? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that the smart money is on that 9 car, and if you want a little bit better of a payout for odds wise, go to the 19 between those two, and maybe even Blaney. Blaney had a pretty good showing, but I think that the 3 cars that are going to make the biggest moves in this race and the ones to keep your eyes on are Chase Elliott, Truex, and Blaney. So. But I know that Michael McDowell is going to get a lot of extra TV time, and I hope that Front Row can turn that into some sponsorship dollars.
Yeah, they could definitely use that coming up this week. And there's not going to be any rain because, of course, there's not, at least on Sunday.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, hopefully we can get the rain, but not the lightning, because we do want to see the rain tires come out. There's a good chance the trucks will be on rain tires on Friday. Although there is that little lightning bolt symbol that wasn't there that we don't like. So hopefully that can change between now and tomorrow, as we're going to go take a handy-dandy check at the weather. And currently it is a 80% chance of precipitation in the Daytona Beach area, centered from 9 o'clock to about 3 p.m. are the heaviest concentrations of rain, and it's still just about a coin flip until about 9 p.m. near the end of that event. Saturday and Sunday are looking pretty clean and dry with temperatures in the 60s. 68 will be for Sunday's race, 60 for the Xfinity Series event. Austin Cindric won there for the Xfinity Series at Daytona, and Ben Rhodes picks up the win in trucks to wrap out the Speed Weeks races in Daytona. But a big talking point going into this week has been the bus stop. They just added some new curbing there to deal with the issues of mud getting splashed onto the racetrack and really causing all sorts of issues. But either way, whether or not that mud is down there or not, Christopher, it's going to come down to how good you are on the brakes to decide who's going to win one of these races.
Yeah, and pictures that I've seen, Denny Hamlin actually posted some photos where they've actually went in and paved over that corner on that bus stop. So looks like NASCAR definitely was not a fan of the dirt on the track, and I'm sure that the drivers were complaining too. I mean, all that dirt getting up on the windows, that's a big time safety issue. And you think about how expensive these cars are and stuff. If putting a little pavement down is going to help with the safety and the financial side for the owners, they're definitely going to do it. If you paid attention to the last couple laps of the Busch Clash, I think the announcers did a really great job of explaining the two strategies, where Blaney was being a little more conservative, just trying to make sure that he wasn't making errors, and Chase Elliott was just bombing corners. He was, hitting the brakes as hard as he could at the last possible second, and he was making up so much time. It just really comes down to two different strategies, and one's great for the short term and one's going to get you through the whole race. So it'll be interesting to see who's going with what towards the end. And a guy, the three guys that I had mentioned earlier, they're very good at turning right. And, for that reason, they've had success on road tracks.
So we go into this. The other race the other corner that's going to have issues, of course, is the bus stop that they've put in. That's going to put a lot of issues on the brakes. And thankfully they did pave over, because we don't want to sit there for like 5 or 10 laps waiting for NASCAR to blow off the dirt and have a bunch of debris cautions. We actually did see a debris caution in the Clash due to the dirt out there. So this gets rid of that. And those turtles are not going to be kind. And at the end of the day, fellas, this is a tough track for these cars. They are not built to turn left and right like the sports cars we saw on the track last month. So either way, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot of fun to watch, especially if it rains. I'm looking very much forward to this race. What about you guys?
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's exciting. Just NASCAR is back, and it's I love being able to sit down on Thursday night and do this, and talk to you guys, talk to the listeners, and I'm just happy that racing's back.
And we've got some time here, so we're going to go ahead and really quickly get to our nearest the win picks. Remember, if you want to play nearest the win, get your pick for who's going to win the O'Reilly Auto Parts 253, #nearest the win. If you get the winner, you get 2 points. If not, you get the point, or whoever has the highest finisher of those that have been selected gets 1 point. And I'm going to go way out on a limb, boys, and I'm going to take Chase Elliott to win at Daytona.
Well, you went out on a limb last week when you picked Noah Gragson.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I picked Bubba Wallace, but it didn't work out either way, so.
You texted me Denny.
Or no, I did text Denny. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did text Denny, and unfortunately that didn't work out for me. I thought I had the sure thing. That didn't work, so I'm going for the sure thing 2 weeks in a row. Let's see if it actually works this time.
Yeah. You did get that I said McDowell last week, right? That is on record?
That is a good point. I think we had to talk to Matt White. He'll listen to this back, and we'll get that down. But, yeah, that would put you in the lead with 2.
No, I didn't. I said Denny. But
I know.
But anyways, I'm going to take the underdog this week, somebody that's probably not Vegas's favorite, and I'm going to say Chase Elliott.
Michael, are you going to walk out here on the limb with us?
No. I'm going to pick Ryan Blaney.
Okay. T is taking Denny Hamlin. So he did not. Denny unfortunately did not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Didn't he take Denny last week?
Yeah, T. If you took Denny last week, you're gonna have to pick someone else because unfortunately you can't take two drivers in the same week or in back-to-back weekends, rather.
Yeah. Taryn took Denny. I got the text message right here.
Okay, so Taryn is gonna have to pick a new driver for this week, but we'll get that out. And if you want to play, of course, tweet out nearest the win. We'll get you into the pool coming up. And as we go into, and actually before we get out of here, I would be extremely remiss without saying that this is the 20-year anniversary of the tragic passing of Dale Earnhardt Sr. For a lot of NASCAR fans who didn't get to see Sr., he was one of a kind. He was extra aggressive. He was really one of those first drivers that wore the black hat and wore it well. Drew a massive following for it of people that loved him and people that loved to hate him. But at the end of his career, he was extremely respected. And at the end of the day, his legacy is not in the 7 championships. It's not in the Hall of Fame ring. It is in the fact that in the 20 years after his death, no one else has lost their lives due to the safety improvements made by the sport. And Christopher and Michael, it's unfortunate that it had to come that way. But Dale Earnhardt Sr., he was a legend in life, even more so in his passing, and he will never be forgotten by this sport.
Never ever.
Yep. Definitely not.
And T is going to go with Kevin Harvick for the pick this week.
That's an interesting one.
That is an interesting one.
Yeah, especially when he did not have...
Has Harvick ever won a road course?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I know he has not had fun at this course. He struggled when we went to it last year for the first time and definitely struggled during the Clash. So that's definitely going out there on the limb. But we shall see. All the races this weekend will be on FS1. Cannot wait to see it, fellas. Christopher, Michael, final thoughts before we say good evening?
I'm just looking forward to more racing, to be honest with you. And wait a second. Did we ever talk about Hamilton ever getting his contract settled?
If we didn't talk about it I wasn't here last week, so actually we didn't have a show
either
last
way,
week,
Hamilton has got his contract settled. Woohoo! All right, there we go.
I think we mentioned it. I don't remember, but yeah, Lewis Hamilton finally got his contract signed. If we didn't, unfortunately, a lot has been going on around here. I've been so busy, so I understand if I missed that.
Understandable.
Yep.
So, for the record, Taryn, to make you feel a little bit better, Harvick does have 2 road course wins, one at Sonoma and one at Watkins Glen, but it's been a few years.
Yep. So we got a win at the original. We'll call them now the original road courses.
Yep.
So tomorrow, more great iSports Radio content comes up with the State of Ohio Sports Podcast with Andrew Hockenbach. Check that out at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. He's followed by Taryn, and the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And after that, also at 8 p.m. Eastern, will be the Unfiltered Truth. Catch that on StreamYard. That is based on the Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders now. So all my Raiders fans, check them out on StreamYard. And at 10 p.m., Larry B. and Cecilia will have a new episode of the Sports Couple Perspectives. So check that out tomorrow on iSports Radio. And if you want to keep up with everything that's going on with iSports Radio, check out the website, iSportsRadio.com, and our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Christopher is at FijiSims25, or at FijiSims. I don't think I heard the story. We were supposed to hear the story of what that username was all about. But you guys may have got to that last week, unfortunately.
So I will tell the story next week on what the name Fiji Sims is. So tune in next week at 8:00 if you guys want to hear the funny story. Maybe not funny, but it's a story anyway.
So he's at Fiji Sims. Michael's at Michael_War25. Actually, I want to make sure that is right before we go off. Sorry, it's been a long day, but. And of course, Michael has a unique name, so it's not actually going to come up. But make sure you give Michael a follow on Twitter. Actually, I know where I can find it. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. And while I'm searching for that, make sure you give iSports Radio a follow. And make sure to check out our sponsors, Mom is Always Right Media and Legacy Financial. And I was right. It was Michael_War25. I don't know why I second guessed myself, but that is what it is. We're getting ready to get on out of here. And make sure that you keep in touch with us on Twitter. We love to talk with the fans, so make sure you keep in touch with us. And above all, just enjoy the races this weekend because it's going to be a lot of fun at Daytona once again. So for Christopher and Michael, I am Daryl. This has been The Extra Mile, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.